So as you guys know, I've been hitting the Housatonic River pretty hard these last few years, and I'm going to give you everything that I learned the last 5 years of fishing the Hoosie in about a 10-minute video. So if you watch this all the way through, it's going to help you have more 100 fish days on the river and maybe hook into the fish of a lifetime. So let's get started. Let's start off by talking about the baits that I use on the river. So I use a 4-inch Super Fluke in a variety of different colors. Believe it or not, the color doesn't matter as much as you think it does, but I tend to use pinks in the fall and spring. Anything that imitates kind of a shiner, so a gray or a silver, a white, and my go-to confidence bait is the baby bass. And the reason why I like this bait is because it looks like a silver side, and although there aren't many silver sides in the river, a lot of the fish that are in the Housatonic tend to migrate out into the sound during the summer, and one of the baits that they're really targeting when they're in the salt water is the silver side. So this bait is deadly. This is the bait that I caught the 43-pounder on. So there goes your basics on color, but don't get hung up on color. It's really the profile that they're looking for, and the rate of fall is really important. So I'm going to talk to you about 3 basic weight sizes that you can use on the Housatonic River. Let's get started. So you have a 1/2 ounce weight, and you use this when the current is really ripping. If it's too hard for you to get your bait down, or if the fish are really concentrated on the bottom. But I'm gonna be honest, I rarely use this anymore. This is what I'm using 90% of the time. I'm using a 1/4 ounce weight, and by the way, there's a 4/0 hook on there, and this is gonna get the job done in any situation. But if the bite is slow and the fish are being finicky, downsize to 1/8. Sometimes the fish want the bait to fall right in front of them very slow. So the different weight sizes affect your rate of fall. So whenever it gets hard, downsize. What kind of setup should you be using? This is very important, and the gear that you use is going to affect how many fish that you catch. So real quick, I'm using my bass rods. I'm using a 7-foot medium light extra fast rod. That's key there. I'm using 20-pound braid to a 12-pound fluoro carbon leader. If the bite's slow, I'll downsize to 8-pound line. I know guys that fish 6, but I wouldn't go that light. The braid is important because it's going to allow you to feel the fish, and it's a very light bite. Sometimes it's almost like a panfish is biting. And it could be a 20-pound fish. So I learned the hard way my first time on the river. My buddy was out fishing me. He was catching 2 fish to my 1. We were using the same bait. I was copying his cadence. I was doing the exact same thing, but the line allowed him to outfish me. So since then, I've actually used braid on the river, and I also use it when I'm tournament fishing for bass because it's a game changer for me. In addition, when it comes to reels, you don't need to go crazy. Just make sure you have a reel with a smooth drag that's going to allow you to play out a big fish. How should you be presenting your baits? Alright, so even more important than the color of the bait that you're throwing is your presentation. And part of the reason why the Housatonic River is fun is because it's always changing. You know they're going to hit a Super Fluke, but every day it changes, and even sometimes throughout the day, the way that they want this bait presented is going to change. So you're going to have to make adjustments in order to stay on the fish, and if you want to have a 100 fish day on the Hoosie. So a little bit about presentation. The Housatonic's a tidal river, so you're going to want to pay attention to which way the tide is moving. Is it coming in? Is it going out? That's going to affect where you cast your bait. So if the tide is going out, you're going to want to cast upriver. And that's going to allow your bait to get down to the bottom. If the current is really ripping, another thing that you could do is cast your bait parallel to your boat, and that's also going to allow your bait to get down. If you don't do that, you're not going to be in the strike zone. But pay attention to your electronics. Maybe the fish are suspended, so you don't want your bait to get all the way down to the bottom. A lot of times, in the winter or especially in the spring, they're going to be higher up in the water column. So pay attention to your electronics as well. If the bite is tough, typically what I'm doing, I'm letting my bait get all the way down to the bottom. I'm not even reeling, and I'll post a video to kind of highlight what I'm doing here. But I'm letting it get to the bottom, and I'm just kind of, once it's on the bottom, giving it a pop, let it sink back down, give it 2 pops, and usually they hit it on the fall. And when I'm doing that, I'm not even reeling most of the time. But pay attention to what you're doing. So once you get bit, you know the cadence that they want, all right? And then you make adjustments. If your friend is out fishing you, ask him how they hit it. Ask him what he was doing. Was he popping it up vertically? Was he popping it to the side? Was it real erratic? Was it slow? Paying attention to those details and how the fish want that bait presented is going to get you on more fish.
What are the seasonal patterns of the striper?
My favorite time of the year to fish is the fall. That's when you get your biggest fish there. A lot of times, so what's happening in the Hoosie is the small fish migrate into the Hoosie during the fall and they stay there to winter. And typically the big stripers migrate down south. But in the fall, what you'll get is big stripers that are about to migrate down south coming into the mouth of the river to feed. And so in the fall, if you're willing to make a run down towards the mouth, you can hook into some big mamas down there. And I've gotten into quite a few big stripers this time of year. The fall is easy to catch them. Anything will really work. You don't need this video for the fall. You could have 100, 300, 200, 1,000 fish a day, whatever you want. Maybe not 1,000, but sky's the limit. Winter, the bite is tough. The fish tend to school up in massive schools. They get real finicky. The bite shuts down. They're in deeper water. Sometimes they're suspended. Usually you can find them in 20 to 40 feet. If you're fishing during the winter, you're always going to be able to find them in 40 feet. But one tip that I'm going to give you is find the ones in 20 feet. Because the ones in 20 feet, for some reason, I don't know why, they're going to be more willing to bite. So find those fish in 20 feet. You're going to hook up more. What else about winter? Once again, just real slow presentation. A lot of guys like to use A-rigs and blade baits. I personally don't. I know they work, but they have multiple hooks, and let's be honest, a lot of these guys are snagging those fish. I mean, some of them are hooked in the mouth, but I tend to get more snags when I'm using a bait with multiple hooks, and this isn't the salmon river, so I like using just a single hook bait on the Hoosie. Spring's a fun time on the river to catch fish. They're really active. You could get them in really shallow water, 10 to 20 feet of water. Usually in spring, a lot of these fish are suspended, and a lot of times I'm catching fish when I'm not even marking them in the spring because they're so shallow. But usually I'm using a lighter weight because the fish are higher in the water column, and I'm using a real erratic retrieve, reeling it as fast as I can, popping it a couple times, killing it, and they'll hit it right after you kill it, and you could have awesome days in spring. And a lot of guys throw unweighted sluggos or topwater in the spring because they're that active and actually have luck. I don't fish the Hoosie in the summer that much, but if I do, or if you want to, you're going to have to make a run all the way down to the mouth. And the best advice I could give you if you're down there is just keep your eyes peeled and look for birds, and the birds are going to put you on a fish because they're going to be around some blues or some stripers. And that time of year, you could use a fluke or topwater.
How to locate stripers in a tidal river?
Usually what I do is I start by going upriver, and I'll idle around zigzagging, watching my electronics, looking for schools of fish. Little tips on that. First off, a lot of times you could catch a snot ton of fish on those big schools that are easy to find. Some of the bigger bites come on the edges of those schools. You can see on the screen, like if there's a lot of lines, if they're really stacked up well. I typically don't catch monsters like that. Usually I catch big fish in small pods that relate close to the bottom. My biggest fish I caught when I drifted off of a school and I wasn't even marking anything. So just a little tip, try to fish on the outside of some of those schools if you're looking for a bigger bite. And also, your best opportunity for a big fish is after you get a lot of rain. I'm not exactly sure why. My guess is that from what I hear, a lot of the big fish hang out near the dam. And once you get a lot of rain, that pushes some of them off. So you could have, even in the middle of the winter, I've had days where I caught 12 keepers and my buddy caught about 12 or 13 keepers. and we got fish up to 35 inches, and I saw another guy catch almost a 30 or 40 pounder. And you know, every year I catch fish over 20 pounds in the river, and it's usually once that current's ripping, and I don't know if it's because the fish are pushed off of the dam or the water's murky and the big girls are willing to feed, but make sure you hit the river up after a big rainstorm, because usually the bite is pretty on fire. Okay, so to review, if you want to catch more fish, make sure you have the right equipment, you're presenting your bait in the right fashion, you're paying attention to the seasonal patterns. If you do those things, you're going to hook into some big mamas. Anyways, if you're still watching, I appreciate you. So I'm doing a giveaway here. I'm going to give away some baits that'll help you catch striper. I'm also giving away 5 or 6 packs of brand new hooks here. And I'm not putting this in the title to beg for views. I'm just doing this because I appreciate you guys watching my video. So to enter for this giveaway, all you have to do is post a comment below giving somebody else a tip that's going to help them catch more striper. So I'm going to go through the tips, and the best tip there is going to get the giveaway. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you smash that subscribe button. I got more coming your way.